Hi everyone, welcome back to Seeds. I'm Tracy.
I'm Kristine.
And today our topic is going to be about narcissism and the effects it has on society. And before we get started, I'd like to start off with one quote that I think speaks well to it. And it's by T.S. Eliot, the writer. It is, "Half the harm that is done in this world is due to people who want to feel important. They don't mean to do harm, but the harm that they cause does not interest them, or they do not see it, or they justify it because they are absorbed in the endless struggle to think well of themselves." What do you think about that?
Repeat that last line. Say that last part again?
The last part is, or they do not see it, or they justify it because they are absorbed in the endless struggle to think well of themselves.
The endless struggle to think well of themselves.
I think it sums it up beautifully.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. And there's so many things in there that can be sort of examined further in terms of thinking well of as well as themselves. And when we try to look at the understanding of who themselves is based on their perception and who themselves really is based on what I believe is more of a big picture perception.
Yes.
Right?
In what sense?
Well, I think when I think of narcissism and when I think, to me, certain words like ego are all sort of tied into that image, self-love are all sort of tied into that word for me. I mean, I look at narcissism and all these other sort of ego things are attached to that. I think that the big picture of self, and hopefully you and I can kind of talk about that a little bit more, is when we truly understand who the self actually is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big.
It's a huge topic.
That's a big topic.
But well, and we're gonna, like you said, we're gonna go through all the inroads of what narcissism is and the difference between narcissism, because I know that we both believe that there's really nothing wrong with loving yourself.
Absolutely not. In fact, there's everything right with loving yourself. It's more the understanding of what the self-love
represents, and I believe the difference is loving yourself, but not to the detriment of others.
That's right.
Yeah. So
that's right.
But
again, I keep going back to this because I think that the true understanding of self, if we have the true understanding of self, there really, this is going to sound really, really out there, but there really is no other. If you truly understand what that self is. So therefore you wouldn't be able to, there would be no detriment to other if you're truly, truly, truly in that place of understanding what self is.
Right.
And that comes into the whole connectedness of us all, the whole idea of we are all one.
I think that's a beautiful explanation.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that what we could do is give a description of what narcissism is.
Okay.
Or some of the symptoms. I'm not sure if you want to do that or.
I don't have it here. Do you have?
I have something on file of what they describe are the characteristics of a narcissist.
Okay.
And you'll be able to pick up the difference of what the difference between what self-love is and narcissism. Let me just look it up here. I had it up here somewhere.
So maybe as you're doing that, just to sort of separate what we're talking about here. I mean, it has its place to some degree, but I don't think with what we're speaking about. Whenever most people, I think of narcissism, I don't know about you, but I watch Criminal Minds, right? And often they're talking about psychopaths who are out there doing all of these things. And absolutely, from what I understand, every psychopath is a narcissist. However, being a narcissist does not render you to be a psychopath either. So we're not talking about, of course, that's something that could be talked about, but in this segment, we're not talking about the narcissism which leads to psychopaths in that respect. We're really talking about more of a personality or a personality trait that people have, that many people have. And I think to some degree, all of us to some degree this could be debated, I guess, that all of us may have it or have exhibited aspects of this at some point. Certainly ego we all have, and we all have to overcome our ego, and to whatever extent that ego falls into narcissism,
Yes.
we all sort of have that.
Yes.
But I think what we're talking about is the true narcissist, as your opening explanation of it sort of indicated, one that it becomes really about them, and their existence is really all about them, to the detriment of others, as you put it.
I guess
So,
I forgot to lock the door.
We have a special guest here today who just decided to make an appearance, and this is Murphy. And Murphy, one could say that Murphy is a bit of a narcissist.
A huge narcissist. Not a bit, a lot.
Murphy
He always has to have the attention.
This is perfect.
I know.
Murphy is a bit of a narcissist in that Murphy has to have all the attention, don't you? You do have to have
And
all the
I'm going to be
attention.
running him out of the room just about now while you can get familiar with this.
Okay, so Murphy, thank you for making your appearance.
Yes. Let's go.
And
This
go
dog.
on. That is funny. So the reason why we chose this topic is because it really does stem into so many aspects of our society, how we interact with people, how we deal with people, what we think about ourselves, and yeah, we just thought that it would be very fitting to sort of tackle
Absolutely.
this.
So I was going to read the characteristics of what they consider. This is a psychology, and all the links that we did, all the stuff that we discussed here, we're going to put down. I'm going to put down the links in the description part, so you can go and read them for yourself. Okay, so this is based on psychologists and what they feel describes what a narcissist is. So I'm going to try and go through them quickly. First is having an exaggerated sense of self-importance, expecting to be recognized and superior even without achievements that warrant it, exaggerating your achievements and talents, being preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate, believing that you are superior and can only be understood by or associate with equally special people, requiring constant admiration, having a sense of entitlement, expecting special favors and unquestioning compliance with your expectations, taking advantage of others to get what you want, having an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others, being envious of others and believing others envy you, behaving in an arrogant or haughty manner. Now, what they also say is, although some features of narcissistic personality disorder, which you were speaking to just a moment ago, may seem like having confidence, it's not the same. Narcissistic personality disorder crosses the border of healthy confidence into thinking so highly of yourself that you put yourself on a pedestal and value yourself more than you value others. So, I think that's a pretty good distinction of what it is.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd like to sort of talk about, if we could, is why that type of personality or the behaviors that are the product of that personality or that perception is so detrimental to our society, is so detrimental to others. Mm-hmm. And really, if I'm really getting at the core of it, why it is so detrimental to the individual who has it. If anything, that's probably even more important
yep.
than how it's affecting other people. Mm-hmm. Because other people always have the choice to let themselves be exposed or subjected to what other people do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But when you are a true narcissist,
mm-hmm.
Can you escape yourself? You know, can you escape all of, and I think at the root of narcissism is insecurity, and you and I talked about that before, is a gross insecurity. And yet on the face of most narcissists, they come across as if they are, holier than thou,
yes,
and
yes, absolutely.
The greatest thing, and it's just a matter of the rest of the world recognizing that they're the greatest. Right? It's only a matter of time before everybody else is going to realize just how great I am.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. No, and it's. I know we shouldn't be laughing because it's a serious issue, but because I guess I just don't understand how people can think that way. But it's a real disorder, and that's why I was even reading that a lot of psychologists have, and psychiatrists have a huge, a difficult time diagnosing people with that because they're so good at manipulation and turning things around on you to make you feel like you're the one that's actually the problem. So they have a really hard time diagnosing, because the first step is a narcissist has to admit that they're a narcissist. And
most narcissists wouldn't...
They won't even see it.
Well, I mean, the narcissist's image of the narcissist, or the narcissist is dependent on his or her own belief that they are great.
Yes.
In their greatness. So anything that challenges any aspect of their greatness, they're going to run away from.
Yeah, or they're going to fight it.
Or they're going to fight it. Or they're going to fight it. So it is, I mean, from the readings that I've done, from what I understand, and some clinical psychologists have actually said that clinical narcissism in and of itself really cannot be cured.
Yes, I heard that, yeah.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I would have to imagine that if there have been any cases of narcissism in its true sense being cured, I'd have to imagine that a great deal of humility would have to come in, like a huge identity breakdown crisis would have to take place for that to happen. So.
Absolutely, and that's where I think you have to recognize there is a problem first. Before you can actually heal the problem. Now, and that's what speaks to what you're saying about self-love. And now, do you believe that narcissism could possibly even be rooted in self-hatred?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely, without any question. I truly, truly, truly do. I think any behavior that separates you from the rest of the world, or the rest of society, the rest of your surroundings, is actually rooted in either self-hatred or a huge lack of understanding as to who you really are. I go back to that whole thing about we are all one.
Yes.
And I truly, truly believe that. I believe there's this connectedness with all of us. And I think to the extent that we forget that, or to the extent that we're unable to see that, breeds this huge separation, this huge sense of, I look at it in terms of the big self, which is we are all one, right? The big, 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 big self. And then you separate in contrast to the little self, the individual, Tracy, Kristine, Peter, Paul, Mary. Right?
You're giving away our age. No, I'm kidding.
I'm kidding. You know, I look at it like that, and I think to the degree that we can only see ourselves as ourself, I just think that it speaks to really not truly knowing who we actually really are.
Absolutely, and that was very eloquently put.
Oh, was it?
I think it was.
Because I felt I was stumbling for words.
No, I think you nailed it as well, and I'm hoping that the reason why we're doing this show is that hopefully we can help people recognize maybe that there are signs or symptoms that they might possibly be one. And I know it's a very difficult thing to admit, but self-reflection is always a very important part of our walk in this journey. But also I was going to say that I'm going to also include a quiz at the end of the show, or sorry, at the in the description part, so that you can all take a quiz and to find out if you're a narcissist. But that's just a side note.
I just think it stemmed in ego, and really we talked about self-love, and I think maybe we can talk about just where does the term narcissist come from? Were you? Okay, so we can sort of get a little bit of a understanding as to where even the term narcissism came from. Do you have?
I don't have a reading, but I did read the story of Narcissus, and I'm sure that some of you out there have, and I think you have. And it's basically the story of Narcissus was that he was a hunter, and that he really loved him.
Was it Greek?
It was Greek mythology.
Greek mythology?
Yeah, it's in Greek mythology. And he happened upon his reflection in a pool of water, and he was so overcome with his beauty that he was staring at it so much and continued to stare at his reflection. And part of it was that he wasn't getting any love back, because it's like he didn't realize that was his reflection.
Yes,
he just saw something beautiful and just wanted to be it. So then apparently he went into the pool and ended up drowning, trying to be with that person in.
Yeah, so he basically really cut himself off from everything,
yes.
because once he saw his reflection, I know there's a lot of symbolism in
yes.
that, right? I mean, it's not as cut and dry as a story,
right.
but I mean, there's a lot in there that can be
right.
examined further. But the idea being that, yeah, he saw his reflection, and could not remove himself from that reflection, right. and the reasons behind that have been, you know, studied and debated for whatever. But the idea being, really, in the long and short, like, you're in love with yourself. You're yes. just in love with yourself.
Yes.
And it goes deeper and deeper and deeper in that. But so, how have you come across anyone that, if you were a clinical psychologist, that you would deem narcissistic? And we're not going to say any names, but if you have, what has been your experience with them? What has been?
I unfortunately have encountered narcissists, which they're the typical one that doesn't realize that they are. But I've encountered two different kinds that I could say that I've come into contact with. And one was the one that was based on insecurity, mm-hmm. where they had to have praise all the time in order to make themselves feel better. But there has been another one that I think he truly believes he's God, you know, and he believes that he deserves worship because he's better than other people. So that's the two different sides that I've seen. And it's pretty sad, actually, to watch somebody, and there's been many different occasions where they would literally even come out and say how important they are, and that you should.
See, that sounds like I don't know, images of Waco and David Koresh.
I would say that person's in line with that.
David Koresh and what was the Jones guy and
Jim Jones. But you see, and then the other side of it is, though, with the person the one particular one that I just spoke about, is that it could just be the way he's portraying himself to me, because other people don't see it in him, but I did. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's a case of that they're not aware of that's what he's doing, or if it's just when I'm around or when I was there, that's when they...
Are these other people not seeing it in him, or are they supporting the image that he has of himself, or are they buying into this image of what he has of himself?
If I have to answer from what I've witnessed, I think they're supporting him.
They're supporting him.
Yes, and for whatever reasons that is, I don't know. I can't speak on it because I don't understand it.
Uh-huh.
But growing up in the family that I've grown up in, we've always been people that didn't really hold back what was really... and it wasn't to hurt anybody, but we would speak our minds, you know? Mm-hmm. We always are people that speak our minds, and when I would see these people who came across as like almost puppets, which was kind of scary, mm-hmm. I'm a person that will interject my opinion. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to like it, but I will just say it and leave it at that. But you are absolutely right in this case, and it could have even helped make the ego grow even more, because he had these little minions that would support his idea of how great he is. Mm-hmm. So, no, and I am being honest. I'm sorry. And, you know, I'll probably get a lot of flack about this, but it's the truth. Unfortunately, I don't even think as I see it, it's the truth as it is. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I just think other people choose not to see it, or they do and they just keep quiet and they support the idea, like you said. Mm-hmm. How about yourself?
With me. Okay, so I've been around what I would deem to be mm-hmm. narcissists. And again, and I mean, I can only say it relative to my world outlook, right? So, I mean, somebody who's maybe a lot more humble than me could very well think, okay, so as I was saying, so I've recently been involved with somebody who I've come to truly love very, very, very much. We've grown together, but definitely this person, even to some level, admittedly, can now look back and see where some of their narcissistic traits had been. With this person, hugely, I think it was steeped in insecurity for them. Their whole identity was based on external validation.
Yes.
largely. They really didn't know who they were. In fact, I actually think who they thought they were was so horrible that they therefore had to create this padding around them, which appeared to be wonderful in order for them to feel good about themselves. But we had many, many discussions around it, and I think that somewhere along the line there was a lie that they told themselves about themselves, or that they believed about themselves, that they were not, that they were horrible. And therefore, like I said, began this
snowball effect.
Effect of doing things and sort of glorifying themselves in order to make them feel better about themselves. Unfortunately for people like that, they lose a lot of relationships.
Absolutely.
So many relationships fall by the wayside. They come, they go, and the person is left, I believe, in a constant struggle to have to keep going through more and more and more people in order to validate themselves. Even though they go, then they go and fish for somebody else, and because it's just it's a dependency that they have on this self glorification, you know, and so I do think it takes somebody who really and truly. And it's not to say people don't care, because you trust me, being involved with a narcissist is one of the most painful roads that you can go down. And I'm not saying that anybody should or shouldn't, because at the end of the day you have to protect yourself, because it's a very, very toxic environment that you are in. It is an extremely toxic environment. And trust me, you're not going to get away unscathed. No. If you decide to stick it through with somebody who has these personalities, but this type of personality. But I do think that your best bet is love for them, unconditional love for them, and that doesn't mean unconditional love meaning you have to be in constant exposure to them,
or submission to it.
Sometimes loving them is walking away. Sometimes loving them, ironically enough, is putting that mirror up to their face, but allowing them to see beneath the surface. Unlike narcissists, the narcissist that you described, they're stared at the surface of them, but really putting a mirror up to different elements and different aspects of themselves so that they can really see themselves, but the core of themselves.
Their true self.
Their true self.
Exactly, and I think that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah.
See, yeah, unfortunately, I've experienced that as well, both sides. The God-like personality and the insecure one. And like you, a lot of it was through childhood and when I was in my earlier years. I
do think the God one too isn't insecure. I still think
you're right. You know what? Absolutely,
insecurity too.
It is, but it's just so you know what? Actually, you're absolutely right, because I think it's something that. It did start off
even be worse.
Worse, exactly. And maybe the degree of insecurity they have is even deeper.
That's right.
That they've even just totally squashed it like it never existed.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is who I really am. You're absolutely right, and that's a revelation to me myself, because I think you have a very good point that all narcissism is rooted in insecurity.
Yeah.
And then some people just bury that insecurity so deep that they don't even recognize it as.
Yeah.
And that's where the God complex comes in.
I think it's far easier to reach the other person, the other one, than it is the God complex one. Because their whole identity is that now. And that's a huge fall. They have to fall from way up here, you know, to be able to break through.
And there may even be, like you said, it could be so far gone that they probably won't even see that it was insecurity. They won't even see. Like this is, like you said, this is just who they are now.
Oh, they'll banish you. Like as soon as you begin to do that, you are just, you're lost. In fact, you're a lost sheep.
Yes.
And
until you come into the fold. Until you follow the fold.
See how magnificent I am. You know, you're just. And
lost. Your loss of me, because I'm making you go. Your loss of me is going to make you recognize how fantastic and great I am. That you're going to suffer until you come back.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's
a scary thought.
Very scary. Very scary. But to the ones where
Yes.
it's. I mean, I'm going to leave those ones to the psychiatrists and stuff like that.
And God.
And God.
Yeah.
All of them, really.
Yeah.
All of us, really.
Yeah.
But to the others where it's really based in insecurity, where they really the image of who they are defines who they are.
Yes.
Those are the ones that I think we all come across quite a bit, and I still think that the answer to them is loving them.
You're right.
Not necessarily supporting the image that they have of them through loving them. I mean, to them, love is that. Love is supporting and reinforcing the image that they have of themselves. And in these cases, I think it's actually loving them and showing them their value and their worth outside of, beneath the exterior image that they have of themselves. You know, opening them up to really, and I mean, in my opinion, they have the right idea.
Yes.
They are great and they are wonderful, as we all are.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
It's showing them really just how great and wonderful they are, but not independent of everybody
else. Exactly. And that not making yourself be put on a pedestal to the detriment of others, but to recognize we are all beautiful. We are all created the same, you know?
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. And for those ones that are insecure, I recognize you're right. It's like they're a wounded animal inside, or there's a wounded spirit. So nurturing and love will probably bring them to realize that we are all the same. And when you expose them to that, you're right. They do have a chance.
Yeah,
they absolutely have a chance.
They do. And when even for me, when I've come across people like that, you know, you almost see them in a better place. Your vision for where they could be. You know, and if only they could really see just how genuinely wonderful they are. I just believe that their experience in their world would be far more
positive and better and happy.
And happy.
They'd be happy.
At the core of them, I don't think they're happy.
No, I think you're absolutely right. That's why they have to look for outside reassurance and happiness.
And happiness from those external sources.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much more we can talk about with this. I'm just trying to think of where we go with it. Like,
well, yeah, I think that you were on the right track in the sense of them hopefully finding within themselves the trueness of who they are and why we're all here. So I think you've already described that. Because I believe once people get to know who they really are, like, I do want to make a clear distinction. There's nothing wrong with loving yourself. It's
paramount that you love yourself. It is. You have to love yourself for you to be able to love everyone else. And I'm glad I'm glad you're reinforcing that, because you have to love yourself. You have to love yourself, but I think what it is that you have to be able to see yourself in other people as well.
Exactly. Yes. So when you're loving yourself, you're loving others.
You're loving others, and when you're loving others, in reverse, you're loving yourself.
Because you're recognizing them in you and you in them.
Exactly. You know, I don't know if it's the Hindus but they use that term, the namaste, and you'll see a lot of them say that, and it's not just Hindus, but a lot of people have adopted even that whole understanding of it, and what it means is that and again, this can be controversial, but it's that whole thing of the God in me recognizes the God in you.
Yes.
What I would say is the love in me recognizes the love in you.
Yeah. And we're in that place. We're one.
We're one.
Yeah.
We're one. And I think it comes down to a lack of vision, a short-sightedness into who you are.
Absolutely.
I really and truly, if there's anything that I could offer to this discussion, is For those of you who already understand the whole concept of we are all one, that's great. I believe that that message and that idea should really be, you know, put out there even more.
Yes.
And for those that don't, I would really encourage you to maybe just contemplate that idea
Yes.
a little bit more. You know, depending on what your religious views are, or if you have any religious views or your spiritual practices, maybe just sort of ask for some more guidance on that understanding. Ask for some more revelation on that understanding in the idea that we are all one. My personal views and in my personal experience is that we really are one. And again, to the extent that we embrace that understanding in our lives, our magnificence becomes more and more revealed to us every single day. Because as we truly understand how great and magnificent we are through God's creation, the universe, whatever, that is our true nature of who we are. And when you say that there is nothing wrong with loving yourself, that is such a gross understatement to the truth of that. It's love yourself more. Love yourself more, but understand just who you actually are. Understand the grandness of who you actually are. And you can't help but love yourself.
Absolutely, and it speaks to the love thy neighbor as yourself.
You know, that, I'll tell you something.
Love your neighbor as yourself.
Okay, I thought we were just going to close, but that opened up a whole other thing. Because, you know, that statement right there, love thy neighbor as thyself. I'm going to throw in another one. Do as to others as you would do unto yourself. Okay? That's in the Bible. That's in various different biblical or scriptural
There's always,
books.
because people have different variations of what it is with the same message.
And commandment? Is that a commandment?
It's not a well, it's kind of in the second. It's in the new. That's in the New Testament, and that's when Jesus said it. He said to love your neighbor as yourself.
Okay.
But yeah, he basically summed up all 10 commandments with love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you take that and you look at the 10 commandments, you have to stick to the 10 commandments to love your neighbor as yourself. So
okay.
Yeah.
Love your neighbor as yourself. People throw that out there all the time. I personally believe that that is a universal truth. As opposed to a universal or a biblical law. You know, people will do that. Okay, so they're not necessarily recognizing their neighbor as thyself, but they're following what, let's say, the Bible teaching says, and okay, I gotta love my neighbor as myself. But I really and truly believe that whatever messengers came here and delivered that message to the people of our land, love thy neighbor as thyself, I don't believe it was in terms of a commandment. I really and truly believe it was a truth. I believe that those individuals who truly embrace that, they see the truth of the connectedness of everyone and everything as being one. And I believe that there's a real truth in love thy neighbor as thyself, because thy neighbor is thyself.
Exactly. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
And like you were talking about visualization, to visualize that person as yourself. To a degree. Like as yourself, or they're an individual, but if you look at them as yourself, you're not going to do certain cruel things to people because you wouldn't do it to yourself.
No, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. There's so much
that
I would love to go into, like even metaphysically in that, and there is
go into it.
There's so much. I want to
meditate on it more.
I would like to, because I feel such an ocean of information and knowledge and insight where that concept is concerned. The whole "we are all one" concept, and maybe that will be the next one that we'll do. So stay tuned for that one. And again, give us your take on what we're saying as well. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to sort of.
Only thing, like, I'll remind you that we will have all the links to the stuff that we were discussing in the description box, but that's all I really wanted to add. So you can finish her off.
All right. So again, We are all one.
Love thy neighbor as yourself.
Love thy neighbor as thyself. And yeah, thank you very, very much for tuning in to Seeds. Trace, you've given me a lot to think about here. Thanks very, very much for tuning in to Seeds. And we would like to know what seeds you're going to plant today.